All right, so we are back, and today we've got another episode for you, just answering a question. And the question we're talking about is, if you had all the time in the world, money was no object, as a creative person, what would your day look like? So, Ryan, how are you going today?
I'm very good, Wade. It's nice to be back in the flow of things, getting some episodes rolling and responding to a viewer questions, man. So let's get into it, man.
It's always good to have a chat. So I'll ask you that. I won't repeat it since I only said it a minute ago. But yeah, so how would you structure things if you didn't have to work but wanted to be creative on a day-to-day basis?
This is going to be a bit of a cop-out, but I wouldn't change much to how I've got things structured currently. But I will say it like this. So my perfect day is either get up, so I get up early, usually between 5:30 and 6, and I either want to start my day off with a workout or just get headfirst into working on stuff creatively. So whether that's content creation or practicing, any sort of skill development, professional development. And I usually split my day up into a 6-hour block in the morning, or whether that 6-hour block starts at 6 a.m. or it starts at, say, 8 or 8:30. I like to do that 6-hour block that's just creative stuff. So it's generating content for YouTube, generating courses, like skill development with my own musicianship and guitar playing. But one thing I found over the years, and when I was doing more composition work, one thing I found which really surprised me when I was doing that pretty much full time was I found it really quite hollow, in the sense that there was like a sense of delayed gratification from when you come up with the beginning of an idea through to the end of it. And it's actually quite an isolating experience when you're purely just working on something creatively and then you don't get that immediate gratification. So one thing I wouldn't change, even as my business starts to become, more and more passive step by step, is I don't want to lose that teaching side of, or that skill sharing side of what I do, because for me, that's really rewarding. I get that immediate gratification from helping somebody solve a problem. When you're just doing purely endeavors for the sake of self-fulfillment, like in the sense of I just want to do this creative thing, when you're talking creative projects, you're talking over a long period of time too. So to get that constant where you can, cool, I actually made a difference with someone today. I helped this person get through a roadblock, or that's really gratifying for me. So sum it all up, I like doing the bulk of my creative work in the morning, usually done by 12 or 1 to 2 o'clock if I start at 8 o'clock. And then usually a little bit of time to chill out, and then, some sort of coaching in the afternoons/evenings. So yeah, that would be my perfect day as a creative.
Very nice, very nice. I do like the fact that you said you wouldn't change much, because one thing I'll say, I'll give you my version of that, which is actually kind of similar in a minute. But I feel like a lot.
Can I just interrupt, dude? Sorry, but the reason why I wouldn't change it is because I'm working towards that. I'm just having to dedicate more time into other things at the moment, like in terms of you doing more and more coaching. But as my business moves more and more online long term, it's just going to be a variation of what I'm already doing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Well, I think too that there are probably a lot of people who hear that and be like, oh, no, you'd probably party and sit around, or you do. I think a lot of people feel like that would be happiness for them. But I think they would find out very quickly that's not. Maybe not very quickly. Give them 6 months and they might be like, you know what? I'm not happy. Because I feel like people need to feel productive. Especially if you're creative, you need to be creative regularly. And you and I are both very fitness-oriented people, so that makes sense that you would want to get a workout in for sure.
Well, the other thing, it just sets it just balances your day, man. It really does. It just balances the day.
Yep.
You might be, because the thing I've learned over the years, man, is some days, things are flowing great. Some days things are going okay. Some days things are a real struggle. You're pushing it uphill, man. You really got to grind it. And the thing I've learned over the years is what helps me stay. It's the whole process of just going through your day, and all those good days, bad days, indifferent days, they all average out in the long run. And it's the process. And if you just keep going through the process and don't sweat the highs, like don't get too caught up in the highs, don't get too down in the lows. Like yesterday, man, I finished work yesterday. I was exhausted, man. Literally like 10, 12-hour day. And I'm just like, I'm absolutely buggered. But like, I know that I'm just tired. I'm not losing, like, surprise, surprise, I'm not executing things brilliantly when I've been exhausted. So I'm like, I've just been here before. I've been through it that many times. Don't sweat the highs. Don't sweat the lows. Just go through the process.
There's some enjoyment and happiness too between being tired from being productive and be like, yeah, I accomplished something, and then being able to rest and enjoy the downtime, as opposed to feeling like you haven't done anything and be like, well, this is nice. It's like the saying, there's a difference between happiness and pleasure. It's like, yeah, sure, you can do things that give you pleasure, certain illegal things that may destroy your health and make you feel really bad about yourself, and that's pleasure, but then you're not happy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that I definitely would be, like, the first thing I would do is I probably about 8:30, 9-ish, like nice and early, I would go for a walk for half an hour, 45 minutes, hit the gym. And then the rest of the day I'd keep pretty flexible, but the goal would be, at least Monday to Friday, would be to do something creative. Might be an hour, it might be 2 or 3 hours, be some digital art, something I can put out into the world. I feel like that's part of why I gravitated to content creation as a career as well, is that I want to put something out into the world. I want to be helpful, but being able to then go, well, cool, I can kind of have a little more freedom in my expression of that would be cool, but I'm still happy the way it is. So, my days, that would be the only difference would be, instead of me trying to squeeze workouts in when my kids go to bed at night, as I would do them in the morning. I mean, I still go to training. I do martial arts at night because that's when it's on, but that would be it. It'd be swapping out my mornings for being able to work out. Everything else would be pretty much the same. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you've got young kids too, and they're not going to stay young forever. So,
yeah,
you'll be
and
able
I get
to
that done while they're at school. So, I get to spend more time with them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a constant evolution. It's a constant balance, but I think that's always a good idea, is to front load your creative work. I think that's the biggest thing, is front load your creative work when you're the freshest. Like if you get up at midday, the first thing you should do, like, after you've done your wake up or whatever, like front load your creative work. Because, sometimes I do bursts of creative work late at night, and that's fine. You just get it in where you can get it in. But if you can actually structure your time, it's always good to do it first thing, I reckon.
Absolutely. I think it's just, as a creative, you need that expression. And I think it's funny, the question becomes, most people who are creative, and if you're listening to this podcast, you might be working a job and you don't get to do the things we do, in which case your scenario might be vastly different, because you're like, well, I don't have to go to work. I can do this, I can do that. And at the end of the day, I think as creative people, obviously you want to look after your health and feel good, but you just want to create that window where you get to have complete expression of your creativity on a regular basis, because that's kind of like the thing that really creates harmony in your life and a nice rhythm. And it's funny how I feel like your answer is very similar to mine. And by the way, we didn't discuss this before the podcast. I mentioned the question and we've just freeballed it. So,
well, one thing I just want to add to that is, it's whether you have a job that funds what you're doing or supplies your ability to actually make art. There's two different ways to think about it. That Nassim Nicholas Taleb, his book Anti-Fragile, he talks about a lot of authors, and some of the authors and he puts himself in this category that he finds the most interesting. Writers who actually kept a day job and they wrote at night, and they actually used the job as a way to buffer themselves from being able to say whatever they wanted. So that's one thing he does with his writing, is he's in the position where he's made a lot of money as a trader, and he just says, I write how I want to write. I don't care what a publisher says. I'm going to write how I want to write, and I want to put the books in the formats I want to do it. So it's whether you have a job or you've invested, or like flipping the script on that. When I'm just a full-time creative, life's going to be great. It's like, well, the job allows you that freedom to say whatever you like. And the other thing too, to your point, this is one thing I found when I was doing composition and arrangement work, is I used to find like that, they're like 90-minute blocks. Like the best stuff would usually come in the first 90 minutes when I was working on something, like come in, start my work fresh. And then the rest of that time outside of that, say I did a 3-4 hour block, the rest of the time after that first 90 minutes was kind of like tradesman work, where the spark of inspiration has been captured, that fresh perspective on the idea you're working on has been captured. Now you're kind of just like being quite tradesman-like and pushing the idea further along. So you don't need 8 hours to be creative. You might have an hour, you might have half an hour, but just a spark of inspiration is almost instantaneous. You know, you don't, and that doesn't take 8 hours, and it usually happens pretty early on when you put yourself in the position to be creative.
Also, yeah, I agree. I reckon I would probably 3-4 hours absolute max if I was going to be creative. And don't get me wrong, I do more time than that with my current YouTube channel. But if I was doing it by choice, I agree. The spark of inspiration would get me started. I'd be in flow state, so I'd be creating my best work. But then eventually you'd probably kind of come out of it and it'd be like, all right, cool, let's just stop there, come back tomorrow, where the inspiration comes back. And I like the idea, and as someone who covers AI, which is almost like an instantaneous form of art generation, I do love the idea of seeing work where you can see the hard work, the sweat, the tears that have gone into it, where you go, this person, especially for drawing, if I see someone, I can say, this person drew every single line on this page. It would have taken hundreds of hours or tens of hours to do. And you need to be able to protect your creative energy doing that. You can't just go, well, I'm going to slog it out 10 hours a day, because eventually you'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. And that's, you said something really, really important there, is like, you got to preserve your creative energy. Like I always found that 3 to 4 hours was a great block of time. I find like that first 90 minutes, and there's a lot of like writers, like I know Stephen King is one who would only write 3 or 4 hours a day. Like there's a lot of people who go on record as saying, like, you can get, if that's focused, dialed in work, if you're ready to put yourself in that spot, even if you've only got an hour, you can still get stuff done, or 45 minutes, just sit down, lock everything out, let's go. Like, but it's just that consistency of sitting down to do your work, man, because that's what's going to allow you to stay creative and just constantly coming back time and time again. If you're saying, I've got to pull an 8-hour session all nighter to get this done, and it doesn't matter whether I'm doing film content or whether it was composition or like writing music or producing music, I always find that you get, like, it's like a wave coming up the beach, man. You get that burst, but you have to recede back into the water to regenerate, to recoup, and then the next wave comes in, and it's that constant outward, inward, like motion of being creative. And I think that's how you create the best work. Because what happens when you, like, the wave goes up the beach, you're at the extension of your time, you start just going in brain patterns now. Like, you're just thinking, okay, you're not being impulsive and creative. You're just going, okay, you've got the same set of logic, which gets you the same sort of results time and time again. You're creating with your brain. You're doing that tradesman-like thing. It's that intuitive spurt in the beginning, that's where the juice is. And that's where you probably want to spend the most of your time in your workflow when you're doing something creative.
I agree. And keeping that organic flow with your energy levels and all that kind of stuff. Like when you got like wife, kids, or family, friends, like you're going to be so dialed, you're going to be in such a good place to be present for them as well. Whereas if you just drive every bit of energy into forcing out some creative endeavor over 8 hours, and don't get me wrong, anyone working will feel this way too. They get home and they're just like, I don't have the energy for anything right now. And, you know, unfortunately, we kind of, as a society, can sometimes pay for that with our relationships. But as a creative, if you can get that nice balance, then you're going to be so switched on and you're going to be just so present because you've got your expression out. You got to do the things you in your core really want to do. And now you're going to be so much better at being around other people. Like, it's just, there's so much benefit to looking at it that way, I think.
I agree. Just before we wrap things up, Wade, there's a book which I think covers a lot of this that I've read a while ago, and it's simply called Rest: Why You Get More Done When You Work Less. And the author is, I'm going to butcher this name, but it's Alex Soojung, which is SOOJUNJ hyphen Kim Pang. So obviously there's two authors there. It's a Penguin. You might even see it as like a Penguin classic, but it's a great little book. I strongly recommend anyone. I've read it a bunch of times. I strongly recommend anyone who's interested in the ideas we've spoken about today, check it out. And like, we should start putting affiliate links in our podcast, Wade.
We should. We'll. I've got an affiliate program, and you don't. I'm just kidding. we should. But it's all good. We will. As the business grows, obviously, but we can still link to that below. We're not going to make any money off of it, but that's cool. If you guys get something out of it, that's really awesome. But otherwise, where can the good people find the great Ryan White online?
Well, they can find myself at that's very Irish. You can find myself.
You can find myself, laddie.
Yeah, yeah. So you can find all my guitar content at www.hpmguitar.com, and the YouTube channel is at HPM Guitar. You can also follow me at Instagram, which is Ryan Wyatt, WYATT, as in Wyatt Earp, Guitar, all one word, Ryan Wyatt Guitar. And Wade, where can the good folks find yourself?
Well, I am primarily on YouTube, but pretty much all the socials except for TikTok. You can find me on Creator Impact, so that's Facebook, Instagram, X.com. Also creatoриmpact.com, or you can just search for Wade McMaster. I think you probably find me that way too.
Yeah, wicked, man.
Cool.
All right, dude, good chats, and we will catch up in the next episode.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you then, and see you guys later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.